this is Asterisk, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be actually working in Logic Pro X. So after spending a little bit more time and being more patient, I was able to resolve all of the problems I was having previously with Logic Pro X, and I'm finding it to be just as capable of doing the same things that I can do in Ableton. So I wanted to kind of share some of the problems and my fixes for those problems with you. And if you're having the same problems, you'll be able to overcome them without going through a dramatic plight as I did. So the very first thing I want to touch on is that you really need to focus on setting up your audio MIDI setup correctly. The audio devices, you can either type this in under the Spotlight search to look for audio devices, or go into your utility folder and locate audio devices. Once this is open, you select Window and then go to Show MIDI Studio. This is the MIDI Studio, and once you're here, if you don't already have a singular access point for all of your gear, you need to create a new one. And this is how you do it. Okay, so here you can define multiple ports, and you see how I'm creating the multiple ports, and you can name this thing. Okay, so once you do that, the ports are actually the physical devices that you're going to be plugging into it. So I caution you to use Logic with this, because it makes it really, really hard to find these things once you're inside of Logic. So in my case, I have a push 2 and the access virus, and so on and so on. So these ports require in and out. So each port, I've just leave them as their default settings. No need to change that. But this is the key part. Make sure also that you have a at least 2 channels selected here and the MIDI beat clock selected. That's an important step. And that's it. All you have to do now is physically connect your gear. So I'm just gonna use the push as a test. Okay, so I'm gonna disconnect it from here, and I'm gonna connect it over there. So I'm just selecting these wires and disconnecting them. So, oh, come on now. All right, so let's grab that over there. Okay, so this is how you would do it. So basically you're just pulling the wires over to the device and dropping it. So that gives me a connection to the new device. I'm going to delete this and put it back to where it was, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like, and I'm going to get rid of this thing too because I don't need it. Okay, I'm going to put it back where it was. Okay, so that is what the MIDI Studio should look like. Every device that you want to have access to needs to have its own individualized port connected to this master MIDI device. And I've labeled everything because it makes it a lot easier to be able to find things. So I'm just going to close that out. I'm going to go up here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to select external MIDI. And I'm going to use external instrument plugin, and I'm going to select, see when you use the MIDI destination, see how you're able to see the actual devices. Without that labeling, this part makes 0 sense. It's super imperative that you label your ports, because you will not know what the hell is going on, because everything will be listed as MIDI master. And when you go looking at it, you'll be like, what the hell am I looking for? It will make absolutely zero sense. And that was the key component that got me down the rabbit hole that I was in initially when I first started trying to add external gear to this thing. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and add the zero coast again, although I've already added it. The other thing that you really need to be cognizant of is knowing what physical port your device is plugged into on your audio interface. So for me, using Luna as my console, I know that I physically have my no coast plugged into, I believe, let's see, line 4. So if I'm looking at my physical ports, I actually need to label them here too. So what I've been doing is really trying to clean up my setup so that I'm not spending an exorbitant amount of time trying to figure out what I have plugged into what. And it makes my life so much simpler by doing it this way. So now that I've defined my physical ports within my console, I know in order for me to add this device is actually a mono device, so I only need a singular channel of it. So my audio source is from input 4, and I'm sending my audio out to 1 and 2. Now, I normally will send things out to 21 and 22, which is a virtual master that I created to use with my Luna session. But what I found is in Logic, it doesn't play well with that, even if you define it as a master alternative. What ends up happening is that the metronome doesn't get ported out to it, and it may be just something extra that I've not seen in the setup on how to set it up. I'm going to have to revisit that as well, just so that I can still have the same setup across the board that I've been using in Ableton as well. So that is how that's set up. Let me close that. Okay, so once I was able to do that, now, and I'm just going to delete this one because, again, I've already recreated this one at the top. Let me see. Did I do something to it? Did I trip it up? Oh, I have it set on mic. I don't know why I've been doing that lately. Just kind of tripping myself up doing silly shit. Okay, so now I actually have access to be able to use the loops mode with my semi-modular gear inside of Logic. The other key thing that I had an issue with is having the MIDI devices play separately per track. Previously, the other issue I was having is that I would add a singular instrument, and because all my instruments are basically using MIDI channel 1 as their input source, all of them would play at the same time, and that is just a no-go. The way that I found that you can get around that is if you go to the open up Logic's preferences, go to MIDI, and down here under the articulation switches section, under MIDI channel, select, instead of it being global, meaning that it's going to play all MIDI channels for everything, you don't want that. You select the per channel, and that stops it from doing that. So now when I switch between tracks, that's when it plays that particular device. And that's exactly how I want it. This is exactly how it operates inside of Ableton as well. I don't worry about this kind of stuff in Ableton because it's already set up to do this by default. But Logic has settings that allow you to be able to have it global. So if you want to have multiple devices playing concurrently that are on the same MIDI channel. So that resolved that issue. So I'm pretty happy with that as well. So now I was able to put all of my external gear inside of here. And also the Access virus. The Access virus has a plugin that comes with it, which is called the Control Center, which is becoming deprecated from the information that they've put on their website, which is not good. I'm hoping that the next version up of Mac OS, I'll still be able to use it because it's currently the only editor that works very well with the virus. I've tried downloading the Mystery Island MIDI editor, and it doesn't work well with USB MIDI. So I'm going to have to eventually upgrade to a MIDI controller, like a master MIDI controller outside, maybe a Mo2 unit that has like multiple inputs and output sources for MIDI, and then move all of my semi-modular gear over to it, as well as that as the virus, because it actually kind of needs physical 5-DIN port MIDI access to get beyond the problems that I'm having with it with using a third-party control editor. So I'm just trying to think future forward, because Access Music has decided to let the control mechanism die. So I have to keep moving forward since I own the gear and continue to be able to use it. The other thing I would have to try to figure out with it is how to import all of my patches that are stored on my computer, and packs that I've purchased from third-party patch developers, how to get that into that editor. So that's going to be a whole other story to deal with. But I was just happy to get it working in here so that I can at least use it, and start trying to learn this particular DAW. I've always been interested in it. I'm a huge Apple fan. I've always been a huge Apple fan. I have been for a really long time. And I was just really surprised that I was having so many issues with this to begin with. But after spending a lot more time with it and trying to understand how things work, I was able to get past most of the issues that I was having. The other issue that I initially had was with loops. I use loops from time to time, and being able to manipulate them like from a transposition aspect. You don't have to use the sampler for that. You just drag it into the loop section and then right click on it and go to transpose, and there you go. Same thing that I would do in Ableton. Changing the way that it loops, reversing or having it loop is under playback. You can quantize the start and quantize to loop start, which is a little different. I've not had that before. It's something I'm gonna have to play with, and it's got a ton of other features that I've not tinkered with yet. That when it comes to respect for how it handles samples. So I'm going to be spending a couple more hours tinkering around with it, just so that I can get more comfortable with it. Also learning how to use their sampler. I've already started experimenting with it with this particular track and using it to do glides, which is kind of hard to do in Ableton. This is one reason why I wanted to try to tinker around with Logic to see if it was easier to do the slides, the 808 slides in it. It's a little bit different. Still not quite what I was looking for, but I'll continue to experiment with it to see if I can get it to smooth out and sound a lot better. I'll have to continue to experiment with it as well in Ableton, to smooth it out there as well, because I've seen people do the slides in Ableton. It's almost like you have to have the exact right kind of sample. It has to be a specific length, and it has to sound a specific way as well, to be able to get the slides to sound to sound that grimy sound that they have. And I'm specifically talking about the UK drill sounds, how the 808s, they're really tweaky and grimy sounding. So that's what I've been experimenting with. So that is all I have for this. That got me over the hurdle that I was having with Logic. So I'll continue to work forward and move forward with this one. I wouldn't say that this is a replacement for Ableton for me. I did appreciate some other things with this, like when you're playing chords, you're able to actually see the note values up here in the transport menu. That was kind of cool. I really wish that was available in Ableton. The having the access to the session builder or this loop view, this is a win for me in using this, because I'm not a straight line creator. I like creating like small clips and then building upon my clips and then dragging the clips over and then building an arrangement after I've defined the musical parts with it. And that's the reason why I really love Ableton, because it makes it so easy to do that. So that is what I've got with this one. So if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I'm a small channel trying to grow. And if you guys have questions, please don't be afraid to ask. I definitely will answer them down in the comment section. Or if it's something that needs a lot more explanation, I'll create a video for it. I've done it before. I'm no different. That is all I've got for this one. I'll see you on the next one.